This is the High Value Man Conversation Podcast, a show dedicated to the mission of building high-value men. Men that are courageous, committed, and uncompromising in their pursuit of greatness.
You run the day and stop having the day run you.
Monday, get better. Tuesday, get better. Wednesday, get better.
Everybody's great when they're not tired. Champions is when they're tired. That's when the real champions come out.
The next day, get up, get up, get up, get up. Keep going.
Win. I'm going to win.
You're not as far away from these dreams as you think you are.
One great man means a great family, a great neighborhood, a better city, community, state, and the world. The question is, if not you, then who? All right, my friend. So I'm going to share a couple of statistics with you.
Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay. I never know.
In the USA, suicide is the second most common cause of death for men under age 45. Canada, suicide is the second most leading cause of death for men under the age of 50. And here's the shocking statistic. In the United Kingdom, suicide is the single largest cause of death for men under the age of 50.
It's unimaginable.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy when you think about that. And it brings a question. Why do men take their lives? Why do they consider it? We were having a conversation off air. And being open, honest, and transparent. I've thought about suicide. I've made some very feeble attempts at it in the past. And Josh was sharing a little bit of his story. And I think most men at some point in their season have thought about it, have attempted it, have considered it. It's ran through their mind. Like maybe I just let the steering wheel go or take or drink a little bit too much. But I think most guys have thought about it. And it's really that suffering and silence that we want to talk about in this episode.
Yeah, that's key. That's absolutely key. I think as men, we've all, just like you said, we've all experienced really, really difficult moments. Mm-hmm. Circumstance is certainly a word I like to use, and I use it frequently. And circumstance is one of those things that time can extend. So circumstance is one of it, but I think it really comes down to moments. There are moments that feel
like infinity,
like it can never change.
Yep.
Like you can never come back from something.
Yep.
Like you put your own nail in your own coffin, and you honestly can't see again. This comes back to an emotional flooding. When our brain and our limbic system gets emotionally flooded, the logic side shuts down.
Yeah.
And we live life with an emotional rudder. Our emotions begin to make our decisions for us, and you find yourself in a moment where it seems like everything's against you. You could never come back from it, and you do. You can let yourself make a choice.
A very permanent choice.
A very permanent choice.
Yeah, and there's a great quote that's floating around, and I've heard it quite a bit, and it's such a good just mantra, but don't make a permanent decision based on temporary feelings. And suicide and taking your own life and the lives that you leave behind, the impact and just the lack of faith is the most permanent decision you can make. But unfortunately, it affects a huge percent of the population. Like it is a leading cause of death in the UK, but also think about the number of veterans that are suffering and struggling with it. A number of guys in our circle. I can think of 3 men in my life that have taken their life, and all through different reasons. But ultimately, I believe it all comes down to this one area they're really lacking in, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So the topic that we're talking about today is tribe. Why men need tribe. More so than anything, inside the tribe, what you gain, the benefits of the tribe, why a tribe is so important, fundamentally how it makes you a better man. And the greatest gift the tribe brings you is intimacy. Intimacy with another man that will be that intrusive accountability buddy that will kick down the door and actually ask how you're really doing, be there for you, lead you, guide you, mentor you, and just be a guy in the trenches with you. Most men don't have tribes. Most men have acquaintances. They've got
That's true.
barstool buddies. They've got a buddy from high school, grade school, or college, someone that they grew up in, someone that they had just life with, proximity versus actually purposeful, intentional relationships. We're going to distinguish how to actually become a member of a tribe, how to build a tribe, and how to be a contributing member of a tribe.
It's huge. No, it's huge. I think we can all, on some level, associate ourselves to a scenario like that. We've all got relationships in life that have time in. And so because we have time in, we automatically assume, like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Yet even so, I can think of dozens of guys in my life that I've certainly got time in. But how they live their life has nothing, very little at all, in correlation to how I live my life.
Yeah.
And so, do I call that person a friend?
It's good. That's a good distinguishing point.
It is. It's one of those. It's just mind-boggling how quickly and how easily that can bring itself to fruition in our lives. I got time with you. Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, I got time with you, and so therefore let's do life together, make all of our decisions based on that. And because it's just a surface level and non-purposeful relationship, we don't typically go deep. So paint a picture for the guys listening on the difference between a values-based relationship that's more of like a tribe member and like a proximity, like a barstool buddy.
Man, big deal. So I consider, I believe we have two types of friendships in our lives.
Okay.
And you mentioned them both. One's more like an associate. So an associate friendship versus a values-based friendship. And so an associate-based friendship is proximity. I love that you use that word. Proximity just means in some form or fashion on my day-to-day we bump into each other. So whether that's the office, the bar, the gym, or maybe we like the same sports team.
Work, yeah.
That's work, and that becomes the hook. That becomes the basis of our interactions with each other. The difficulty with that, with an associate type relationship, is there's no depth required of me.
Yeah.
There's no depth required of us. So everything that we talk about, everything that we relate in has 100% to do with external things. The sports team, the contract we might be working on together, things that are out here, but nothing of who I am.
No intimacy.
There's no intimacy. There's no connection there versus a values-based friendship. And this is how I truly define friendship in my own life. A values-based is because we are doing life and running in the same general direction. We have the same values. We have the same desired outcomes with our life. We want to have great families. We want to be fit. We want to have great finances for the sake of being generous. I mean, so faith, family, fitness, these areas that we talk about often, that these are shared things that we both desire in our life, makes it easy for us to tether up and run together. And so that's a values-based relationship. Even in the HVM community, we all have a desire to make ourselves better. We know that there's a better version of us right in our midst. How do we make that come to fruition? That's a shared value. That means we can tether together and do life together because we're going to help each other grow in those areas, how important that is. I love that Tony Robbins says this, and this kind of goes against what I just said, but just hear it in the way that Tony would say it, is that proximity is power. So to be in proximity of men, not all people, men, being in proximity to men that have something in their life that I want. Be in proximity to that, because that gives me a model, that gives me a template, that gives me an anvil. Just how important that is of who are we tethered to. Yeah,
I love that. The proximity is power, like regardless. Proximity is power because you give power to the people you are in proximity to. And so you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so if your 5 people are knuckleheads, there's no intimacy, vulnerability, trust, accountability. There's no shared vision. There's no core values. You guys aren't operating towards a singular direction. There's not a template of faith. And it's just barstool buddy who's focused on a good time. You're giving those people power, and really you're giving them a whole lot of strength in your life in the direction you're going to go in.
Yeah, and you're also giving them the only currency you'll ever have is your time.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of time that is spent wasted on empty relationships is only something you'll never get back. And what you're fostering in that is, it's shallow, it's empty, and there's no true attachment there.
Yeah. But I will say, just as a seed of hope, is that we all get to be the thermostat in a room that changes the temperature. And so if you've got a group of guys where there's just not intimacy because no one has gone first, go be that guy. Be the guy that, takes note, that it levels up, creates vision, values, brings in a template of faith, brings in other groups of men, level up yourself, and create that modeling of masculinity inside the tribe you're in. And if the rest of the tribe doesn't want to join, then go find another tribe.
I love that you said that. And I want to give the other side. The other side of that picture is, Aaron, you mentioned that as a man, we have a decision to make. In every room that we're in, you're either going to be the thermostat or you're going to be the thermometer.
Yeah, where do thermometers go?
They just reflect. So this goes.
But where do they go?
The trash.
They go right up your butt.
Well, some of them do.
Yeah.
Some of them do. That's gross.
They don't all go there?
No, there's other options. But what you're doing, if you choose to be the thermometer, is the room decides who you are. The room decides what you bring to the table. The room decides what you get out of it. The room decides essentially what your life looks like, versus choosing this is how it's going to be when I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And if you ever decide to make the choice to be the thermostat, the funny thing about it is you attract who you are.
Yeah.
You begin to attract people that have what you want. You attract men that are further along in their own journeys than you are.
Yes.
And what a coincidence how life is designed that way.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And I'll say the difference between also the acquaintances and the barstool buddies versus the values-based tribe is that ultimately the shallow relationships are going to breed a feeling of loneliness. And I think that's where so many guys suffer in silence and that lone wolf. You know, there's a lone wolf, I got to do all by myself. I'm self-made. There's nobody here for me. Those guys are often found inside of like groups of acquaintances because there's no intimacy. There's no realness there. And I think that's the other big piece. There's not only this lack of masculine depth with other men, but there's also just a whole bunch of guys running around thinking they can operate as a lone wolf.
No, for sure. That comes out. I mean, the Bible talks about pride comes before the fall, and I think about what a talent that we lost in Robin Williams. Just somebody that had massive success, had the ability to bring laughter, joy, easiness, literally to every room and every set he was ever on. There's just documentary after documentary of the joy that he was as an individual. Yeah. Yet he chose, and I believe out of pride, to suffer on his own, and he literally suffered himself all the way to taking his own life. Yeah, and it's just mind-boggling that somebody that has literally, you would think, has literally every opportunity. Because who wouldn't want to be friends with Robin Williams? Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, like who wouldn't want to go hang out on his couch and get to know him? Sure. And just to have an individual like that choose to isolate themselves so much so that he couldn't see the end to his pain. Yeah. And the only way out that he thought was to take his own life. Just tragic. Yeah.
If you think about that, so a guy it's surrounded by people, Robin Williams, that is operating as a lone wolf, feels truly that there is another way out, takes his life. What's missing in that? Like, what was he missing? What are most guys missing in regards to deep, intimate relationships with men? How do you build intimacy as a man? And I think that's what we're going to dive into with the actual mechanics of this, because we know in our heart that we need tribe. Iron sharpens iron. We come from the tribe. We are tribal creatures by nature. We put a group of men together. We naturally get more competitive. We build our character. We have healthy confrontation. We grow. And so we know naturally, like, that's how we're designed. Football teams, baseball teams, basketball teams, those are all tribes. But what prevents a man from really building intimacy?
Well, one, it's not modeled.
Yeah,
it's not modeled well at all. And this is just a plague across manhood in and of itself. Most fathers aren't good at this, which is why most sons aren't good at this.
So good.
Is creating a true intimate friendship starting with one person. And then you have once you got that, you have the ability to be part of a tribe. And I think that most men don't understand that there's pursuit required in that. Yeah. If you've ever been attracted to a woman and you went and got her on some level, you pursued her. Yes. You became aware of who she is. You became aware of the things that she enjoyed in life. You got to know her. You put a lot of action in your effort.
Curiosity and cultivation.
That you put forward to make that relationship happen. Yet men have not understood that the same level of attention and effort and attitude is required to cultivate with another man. You've got to decide there's something about you that I really like. Aaron, there are so many things about you that I simply treasure. And I didn't get to stand here and do this with you just because, like, we bumped into each other at a gas station one day. We decided at some point to start pursuing a relationship, and we became great friends before we decided to do this. It's taken a lot of effort between the two of us. It's taken a lot of transparency, vulnerability. We've shared quite a bit off the record just between ourselves. That's created a deep, meaningful relationship. And so that's just a big part that most men miss. They're willing to do it for a woman, because there's a desire of, like, I might get to sticker. But that can't be the only reason why you pursue a woman.
And on that talking point, I believe our pastor shares this, is that you first have to develop loyalty to a man before you can ever truly develop loyalty to a woman.
Say that again.
Right? You have to develop first loyalty with a man before you can ever develop loyalty with a woman. So friendship is the practice ground for intimate relationship with a woman. Friendship is the practice ground for marriage.
It is. It absolutely. I completely agree with that. If you're not going to take the time to build an intimate relationship with a man, then you choose to pursue a woman. What you're doing is you're non-verbally expecting her to show up the way a man should.
Oh, so good. So she ends up becoming the anvil in the relationship, your only, like, safe place to talk through things. And while you shouldn't have any secrets from your relationship, she's not designed to work out your masculine journey.
That's true. I'll say this to the camera. Most men will create relationships like that, and they wonder why they live with a woman that really reminds them of their mother.
Oh, so good.
Your wife is not your mother. She's not designed to be your mother. She's designed to be your lover. She's designed to be feminine and sweet. She's designed to be caring and tender, and she's designed to be your lover.
Yes.
She's not designed to be a masculine man. So
yes.
you can come home after a hard day at work and
complain
just
about the day
and complain and all these things on her.
Or I see this a lot in the guys that we coach, is that they bring all of their heavy questions to the relationship. And so what should I do? What path should I go? Should I take this opportunity? Should I do this? And so they're looking for validation and approval from a woman. The second you start delivering the questions to her, it puts her in a masculine. She's got to now decide, takes her out of safety and security. And then it also, more so, I think it puts you in the feminine because you're not taking point. And all of these questions, for the most part, should be brought to the tribe first.
So this is interesting. So just being involved in a church scenario for decades now, I've seen so many men come into a great room, a room that will challenge them, a room that will make them think differently about their own philosophies. And something in them is stirred. They have their questions, but rather than going to a man, rather than going to somebody else who's in the room and asking those questions, they'll go home and they'll talk to their wives about it and they get in their emotions. And that's why you see so many people hop from church to church to church, because it's an emotional rudder. Now, that's just one scenario out of many that can play out in a man's life. But you've got to have another man that you can bring those questions to. And you've got to be bold enough to ask the question. I think if I was standing in front of any man, if any of you were in this room standing in front of me and I asked you a difficult question, that you would be willing to answer it. You'd be willing to go there with me. It's one of those, you wouldn't probably cower down and go, oh, I don't want to talk about it right now. No, you'd have that dialogue. You've got to have that same approach in those rooms. Find a man that you can have those conversations with. It's intricate. You've got to have it.
I love it, man. Okay, so let's talk to the lone wolves out there that have a bunch of acquaintances, barstool buddies, and they recognize they need the tribe. They're suffering in silence. We don't want them to be part of that 50% of the population. They're taking their lives through suicide. And so what are a couple steps that they could do to start building intimacy with one man first? You've got an amazing story of how a friend of ours, Alan, pursued you, and I think that is such a good blueprint of what it actually takes to develop friendship with another man.
Yeah, Alan is precious to me, simply because I'll give you the end story before I give you the backstory. So the end story is, I'm in a place now in my life where I've got probably a couple hundred men that I would call friends. Out of those couple hundred, I've got a couple dozen that I would say are near and dear to me. Out of those couple dozen, I've probably got more than a half dozen to maybe a dozen men that I would trust my child with, that I would trust to show up at my home at 2 a.m. because I was traveling, because there was something going on. I needed something. I had to make a phone call at 2 a.m. And trust them to go take care of it for me. Now, that's the end game. I'm very grateful and blessed to have that. At the same time, I've cultivated that. But what I want to go back to is Alan. So the reason why I have these relationships is all because Alan was the first guy that pulled me out of my own pit. So I met Alan at a church marriage class, and we sat next to each other. He's an outgoing guy, and really started talking to me. And from a get-go, I thought, oh, he's a cool guy. And Alan certainly took to me as well and asked my phone number, wanted to call me, things like that. And he ended up calling me, and I lived most of my life on the phone, just most of it. And so I ignored his calls literally for a couple weeks. And I was thinking to myself, why does this guy keep calling? Like, I liked him, but why does he keep calling me? It's awkward. It's kind of weird. But he kept calling. So eventually I remember driving down the road and I answered one day. And he told me a few things that will stick with me the rest of my life. And things that really stuck out is he said, I really like you. I like who you are. I like the direction you're running in. I can see you as a friend. But he goes, I can already tell you suck at this. Like, you suck. And but I like you enough, I'm going to help you. And I went, in my mind, I'm thinking, who are you? Who are you to call me up and say that to me? Like, I've got my life in order. I've got friends, even though I didn't have male friends. But no, Alan saw something in me that he liked, and he was the one that stepped out, made the phone calls, and cultivated that in me. And fast forward over the course of about 6 months, as Alan would probably call me 2 or 3 times a week, just to say, hey, just to see, hey, what's going on? Tell me about your life. And cultivated a true friendship in my life. And I would say Alan's the first one. Fast forward now, we've been together probably 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. That he was the first man that I had true intimacy with, a true depth in a relationship where he knew most everything about me. But it took him. If he didn't step out and do that for me first, I probably wouldn't have had the template nor the balls to go do it myself, and now have so many men in my life.
And now do it to other men.
And now to be able to do it with other men, I've cultivated I've fostered other great male relationships in my life because Alan was the first one that reached out and pulled me out of my own thinking, out of my own philosophy, out of my own definition of friendship. And for that reason, he is very, very near and dear to me, and I feel very tenderly about him.
I love that. So break that down. There's a template and a process in there for those guys that were listening to that. First and foremost, Josh put himself in the right room where there's shared vision, a room where there's shared values, a room where there's already a tribal culture in place, and he allowed himself first and foremost to be open to it. And so, if you are in the wrong rooms, you lack intimacy, you're the lone wolf, you got to get in the right rooms first and foremost. Like you're more than likely not going to meet a high quality, high value man relationship at the bar, sitting around watching football and drinking. Like, that's probably not going to happen. Like, the guys that are actually moving in a direction, the tribes that are moving in a direction with vision, core values, stacking victories, living and leading a great life are not hanging out at the bar on a Sunday afternoon. They're not. They're doing things that are productive and actually adding value. And so, first and foremost, get yourself in the right rooms.
Yeah, that's huge. That is a big deal. And not to completely discount those rooms, the bar still buddy. But that is a picture of values. That's a picture of priorities. That's what you want your life to look like. Keep going.
True.
And your life will never change.
Yes.
Your life will never change for the better. You'll just get older and more crusty. If that's what you want, keep going there. But no, that's a big deal of finding rooms where there are people that have what you want and choosing to be in the room. It'll never be convenient. It'll never be convenient. No. But you got to get there.
But nothing worthwhile is convenient.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits of the tribe, Josh?
So I love this. This is out of Scripture, but Scripture talks about iron sharpening iron, and it's one of those that it's so much profound depth to that. Because if you ever want to take a piece of metal and turn it into a sword, turn it into something useful, make it sharp, make it attractive, you've got to beat the living snot out of it. You've got to put it in really high heat, just stress it a lot, and then beat the snot out of it. It takes a hammer. It also takes an anvil.
Yes,
there's multiple parts to this equation. And so the Bible talks about iron sharpening iron. So again, you've got to get around people that are more than just surface level with you. They're going to ask the questions. They're going to expect more out of you than you probably expect out of yourself.
Good.
And through doing life with those people, by pursuing them, you're going to allow them to start to beat the things out of you. And you've got to allow that. You've got to invite that into your life to live uncomfortably. That even I've said in multiple scenarios that my own discomfort is the barometer to the change that I say that I want. If I'm not uncomfortable in a relationship, then it's high likelihood that relationship's not really serving me.
Yeah.
So I want to get around people that literally rub my fur in the wrong direction because they've got something that I want, and because of that, because I allow that in my life, then it gives me the eyes to see what's possible.
I love that. I want to spend a second talking about the anvil because we touched on this briefly, but if you don't have another masculine model in your life, another intimate relationship that will beat the snot out of you in a loving way, and sometimes not loving way, but to literally be the anvil that you can beat out your growth, your failures, your successes, your character defects. If you don't have another man to do that, you will bring it into your intimate relationship because that's the only other person that you have in your life. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is that beautiful feminine flower that you pursued at one point, you end up wilting because she becomes the anvil for all of your bad decisions that another man is better equipped to deal with.
Yes, your wife, your partner is not designed to be your anvil. They're not, by any means. You've got to have another man. That's just core to friendship.
Let's talk for a second. So we're talking a little bit off air on how we utilize this friend group, how the tribe works and what intimacy looks like. So I'm stepping into a season of dating, and one of those things I'm stepping into is talking to ladies. And one of the areas that I know that I want to create some accountability on is making sure that I'm pursuing based on vision and values. Also that it doesn't become a distraction because I've got a relationship here inside the this business that I want to make sure is a priority. And I want to make sure that I'm making a conscious decision rather than an unconscious decision. So part of that transparency and intimacy that I get to develop with Josh is like, hey, here's who I'm talking to. Here's what I'm interested in. Here's what it's looking like. Here's what the intimacy between me and this potential person might look like or will look like. And just having someone else that gets to be that intrusive accountability to help me stay in the direction rather than letting my own thoughts, behaviors run rampant.
That's you. What a great template. And I would tell you that this is fictional. I mean, I'd imagine 1 in 10 million men think that way. It's just one of those, and it gives you such an opportunity. And I just hats off to you for thinking that way. To create with vision a relationship that you want, because that right individual is out there. And now that you literally have, say, a spreadsheet, but you have an idea of what you're looking for. Even better, brilliant.
Yeah.
That you have a clear idea of what this individual will look like, what their life will look like, what's important to them, is beautiful. And I love the fact that you're choosing to allow someone like me and probably a few other guys in your sphere, but to be part of your journey. That keeps you from living a life with an emotional rudder, which we talked about.
Yeah.
And chasing a value of feeling. I want to feel good while I'm in this relationship versus no, I have a desired outcome of this, and this. This is the kind of relationship I want to build. I'm dating for the purpose of marriage. How important that is. And it's just, you're such a resource for guys.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But that's probably the greatest benefit to a tribal culture is recognizing that there are other men in the tribe that have what you want. You don't have to do it on your own. If you choose to be the lone wolf, suffer and struggle in silence, do things as you've always done, you're going to get the same things you've always got. And so if you want something different in your life, you have to recognize there's a template outside, but it is going to require an area of vulnerability and transparency. Like, hey, I'm not good at this area, I'm not good quite yet, and I need some accountability and a little bit of love here.
The ripple effect of that is huge. So I think about even more so the benefits of being in a tribe. So if you're on this podcast, if you're part of the HVM community, you understand that being in this room, there are very strong philosophies of how to do life, of how to do family, of how to do your physique, of how to do your finances.
Yep.
Once you're exposed to them, you have a great opportunity to go recreate that for yourself. So philosophy is a big piece.
Yes.
Inside of that are templates, and templates are great because if X plus Y equals Z, most every scenario in my life it does, then I can take that from another man and go recreate it really quickly in my life versus having to put in 10 years of attempting to recreate the wheel for myself, and it's huge. But I also love that in rooms like this where there's tribe, there's philosophy, there's templates, that there's also a modeled masculinity.
Yes.
That I can get a great definition of what masculinity looks like. Masculinity is, in and of itself, is not pick yourself up by your bootstraps and go get your life together. By no means. Masculinity is by understanding that I can respond to scenarios, that I can build structure in my life, I can choose to decide what my life looks like and who the people so family of choice comes to mind. This whole idea of, we were exposed to this through our church, that you have a family of origin, but you also have a family of choice. Your family of origin, you didn't get to decide.
Yeah.
You decided who your parents were, who your siblings were, the people you grew up next to. Your parents decided that. But as an adult, we have the capability and the opportunity to build a family of choice.
So good.
And that's so much. That's just so much depth in that when it comes to choosing a tribe, because you are responsible for who you put in your sphere.
Yes.
You really are. So you get modeled masculinity, and the beautiful part about that is once you build intimacy, you also have accountability. As far as men go, we suck at our own accountability. I'm going to change this because I can do it.
Yeah.
Or
white knuckling it.
I'm going to bring somebody into my sphere because when I want to change, I can just do it. You're not that good.
Yeah.
You're not that strong. Otherwise, you'd have done it by now. Having great accountability, people that you can trust, that you will allow to see your intimacy, to see into me. I can show you the best parts of myself. I can show you the crap parts of myself and know that you're not going to leave me.
Yes.
If anything, you're going to help me create the life and lifestyle that I want for myself.
Yeah.
Because you truly care about me.
Yeah. I think that the one thing too that I want to touch on is that, and because I've been there before, is the fear of joining a tribe is the fear of being cast out or not accepted, of rejection, right? And I think one of the
exposed.
We're exposed, and just like dating, right? So if there's a beautiful woman and you want to pursue her, there is a chance of rejection. That's just the nature of the game. But there is a right tribe and a right woman and a right opportunity for every single person. The beautiful thing about about the tribe of men, though, we love men that are willing to be coachable, teachable, trainable, and mentorable. And so if you show up humble and in a spirit of wanting to learn, like that is the best type of guy to join a tribe, because you're not coming in with pride and ego and anger and frustration and think you have to do it a certain way. There's a level of submission. What makes tribe work so well is the process of learning how to follow and then lead.
I love that. That comes back to, here's another Pastor Keith, is that he says if you're too big to follow, you're too small to lead. And so getting in rooms where you know there's people who are further along than you, that have what you want, that are financially farther off than you, and doing it in a way where you have vulnerability. There's so much masculinity inside vulnerability.
Yeah, it's everything.
Choosing to be vulnerable in those scenarios, in those rooms, is the only way to get yourself the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read books all day, but from a distance, are you really going to experience what that looks like? No. You've got to be around people that have what you want. And that's only available in a tribe setting.
I love that. Love that. Okay, quick recap on this. The fastest, most effective way for you to level up in your life is to get around other men that are doing it. So that is the tribe, first and foremost. But this is more so than anything a public service announcement, a reminder that guys are suffering and struggling at rapid rates. And we shared some statistics at the beginning of this podcast that 100% of the number one cause for the deaths in the UK are from suicide, 50% in the US and Canada, and it's the number 2 leading cause. Like, that's a terrifying statistic. There are guys out there that are struggling and suffering. So if you are a man that is suffering and struggling, recognize that there is a template. First and foremost, you got to raise your hand. There's going to be the Allens out there that will find you and pursue you. And so pick up the phone, answer, put yourself in those right places, but also realize you don't have to suffer and struggle in silence. Every one of us has a story at some point where, man, it was so bad and the misery just seemed insurmountable and I want to take my life. But I'm telling you, on the other side, that there is a better way, and there's guys out there that desperately want to connect, build, and do life with you.
That's true. Every man, I can't keep going back to Pastor Keith on this, but it is what it is. So one of Pastor Keith's greatest messages in his life, just like our fingerprints, we all have a fingerprint that nobody else in history has ever had, nobody else in history is going to have, that there's parts in you, that 1% of you, an X factor in you, if you can hear my voice, that is different and value bringing that nobody else will have. And as a man that's part of a tribe, how much I need that from you. I want that.
The value that it brings.
There's parts of you that I need in my life. And so just realize when you walk into a room that you have an excellence within you, you have a gift, a talent, an ability to bring that part of you into the room and not to withhold that.
Yeah.
And to understand that you have so much to bring inside of a room, regardless of what the room is. And we need you.
Yes.
We need men in our lives that want to grow. We need men in our lives that know that there's better out there for them. You know what? Let's get on the same journey together. Let's run this race together. There's strength in numbers. Surround yourself with other people that are on the same path as you. And so that's what makes this community so attractive.
Yes.
Is that we all have this shared desire to figure out whatever it is in front of us that's the better version of our life, and we'll figure it out and gain it together. Rising tides raises all ships. So why would you not want to be a part of that? We need you.
Yes.
We need you.
We need you. Love it. Fantastic episode, guys. If this brought you some value, do us a favor, like, subscribe, share, leave us a 5-star rating, leave us a comment, shoot us a message DM. If you're suffering and struggling in silence, message me personally, message Josh. We'd love to connect with you offline. More so than anything, don't forget that men need tribe.
Yes, indeed.
Much love, many blessings. Talk to you soon. Boom.
Get off the podcast. Get back to the fucking mental lab.